This video that you're about to watch, it's brought to you by CuriosityStream. All of our videos are indefinitely postponed. With the world on lockdown, I can't travel to New Jersey for the Kevin Smith analysis, I can't pick up the clown costume for the video about the It movies, we can't fire Jake out of a cannon for the Greatest Showman video. We've got all these release dates with no usable video ideas.
Patrick, you've been inside for 2 weeks. Go for a walk.
Fine.
Seeking answers to my problems, I was drawn to nature. And it was there that I found the solution. The ultimate video idea. A guaranteed cash cow. A golden goose. Okay. Hey folks, welcome to my new 10-part series analyzing the various toy Batmobiles produced by Kenner Toys during the 90s. We'll be talking about all my favorites, such as the Batman Returns Batmobile, as well as what I think is the most underrated Batmobile, the one from the Legends of Batman line. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Patrick, a silver Batmobile? Can it even be a Batmobile if it isn't black? Now that's a great question. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. We can't make any of the videos we had planned, and none of the new ideas I've been trying are working. I'm sitting here like an idiot while talk show hosts and celebrities are becoming YouTubers, making low production value videos from home and putting them on the internet. Even our lazy old friend Mike from high school is getting in on the action.
Some people will ask, do we really need 4 shows about Lego Star Wars? I ask, why so few?
I mean, maybe you could let us make more videos. We've got tons of ideas.
Here's one, my pitch for Trolls 3.
Hey, Monkey Bone? What was Brendan Fraser really trying to tell us?
Ernest Goes to Africa and why it's 100% not racist.
Jesus Christ, guys, no! Don't you realize what we're up against? Conan O'Brien and Jimmy Fallon are eating our lunch here. They're muscling in on my turf.
Patrick, I think you just found the idea.
I did?
You beat those famos at their own game.
That's it. A quarantined talk show with no guests, just me, and all I'll talk about are movies.
That sounds a lot like what you've been doing. I was thinking more like you'd innovate and do something new and set yourself apart from them.
No, and you two are gonna do recurring segments and Jake will be my sidekick.
Wait, what?
Also, get Charl in on this too. I got a blast. So watch out, Krasinski. Sure, you're a sitcom star, an action star, a successful horror director. You've got tons of A-list celebrity friends and more than 5 times as many subscribers as me, but I have something you don't. Good audio quality and a way better theme song. Hello, and welcome to Patdemic. I'm your host, Patrick Willems, and right now I'm wondering, is this name insensitive? Should I change it before the next episode? What do you think, Jake?
Well, Pat, don't look at me. I'm just the band leader.
Thanks for tuning into the show. You can tell it's a talk show because I'm sitting behind a desk. And by desk, I mean a dresser that my legs can't fit under. But look, this is YouTube. And unlike all those celebrities invading our territory, us real YouTubers have spent years honing a very particular set of skills. Like not pausing after a joke for laughter that isn't coming. Anyway, hey Jake, how's it going over there?
Oh, I'm coming in hot. Hit it.
Good to have you here, buddy. For our first episode, I want to talk about something people have been asking about for a while now. Actually, 6 things people have been asking about. See, here on this channel, we've done a bunch of videos analyzing the work of different directors or movie franchises or genres. And then when one of those directors makes a new movie or there's a new installment in the series, I get all these questions about whether I'm going to do a follow-up and talk about it. But in all those cases, a brief addendum to a previous video doesn't really warrant its own video. But what if I had a bunch of addendums? What if I finally gave updates to 6 topics I covered before? Well, it's happening. And if you want to skip right to the one you're most curious about, there are time codes in the description. For months now, I've been bombarded with people going, "Tell me all your thoughts on Cats," because I'd really like to hear them. That was a Dishwalla reference. Because I made that video last summer about Tom Hooper's film adaptation of the musical Cats, thus becoming a Cats stan or a member of the Cats fam or whatever it's called, people have wanted to know, what did I think of the actual movie? Well, if you really want to know, you could follow me on Twitter or Letterboxd or listen to my podcast because I've shared my thoughts in all of those places. But the thing is, at this point, Cats has been covered by everyone. Maggie Mae Fish and Lindsay Ellis recently made hour-long videos about it, and they're both great. They're videos by Nando V Movies and Folding Ideas. At this point, I have no idea what I could possibly add. Last summer, I said I was interested in Cats because it's a weird-ass musical being directed by a guy who doesn't really know what he's doing and makes big choices for the sake of making big choices, and that it looked like an insane, fascinating nightmare. And then I saw the movie, and you know what? Tom Hooper made a lot of big choices for the sake of making big choices, and it was an insane, fascinating nightmare. Is it good? No. Did I have a good time? Hell yeah. But I also don't really want to ever watch it again. So I'll leave you with these 4 thoughts on Cats. These aren't all my thoughts on Cats, but they're the important ones. Number 1. Skimbleshanks the Railway Cat is the best. It isn't even a contest. Rad mustache, best dancer, easily the best song. I mean, just listen to this. And now that will be stuck in your head for the next 3 days. Number 2. Tom Hooper did chill out with his crazy wide lenses and Dutch angles and didn't shoot the entire movie in close-ups, which was a relief. But still, any song without dancing was shot all in close-up since it's the only thing he knows how to do. And he often seems to not understand what to do with the camera during musical numbers. He uses way too much handheld and his camera placement and editing gets in the way of what the scene is trying to do. Tom Hooper, still bad at musicals. Number 3, it is unnervingly sexual. Whether it's Jason Derulo pouring milk into the cats' mouths as they lap it up, or the way they always seem to rub their faces against each other, or Judi Dench, like, opening her legs, it's horrifying in a way I could not look away from. But probably the best example of this is Idris Elba as McCavity. See, he wears a coat for most of the movie, which raises its own questions about where the fur for that coat came from, but later on he removes the coat, and his character's fur happens to be the same color as Idris Elba's actual skin. So he just looks like he's naked. And then when he's dancing with Cat Taylor Swift, all I could think was, these cat people are gonna fuck. And number 4, making this movie was a bad idea. It should not have happened. Somewhere along the line, someone should have stopped it. But like another insane disaster from 2019, the film Serenity, I'm so glad no one did. And yes, I still occasionally awake in the middle of the night in a cold sweat, because I've just remembered that in the 2019 film Cats, Ray Winstone, Beowulf himself, played Growl Tiger and sang this song.
The terror of the Thames.
So, my final word on Cats is this. Cats, 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 cats. Moving on. It has been 3 years since I made that Fast and Furious video, and since then there have been 2 new movies in the series. Plus one that was supposed to open in May, but because of this goddamn fucking pandemic, it's delayed an entire year. So here's my take on the state of the series. The Fate of the Furious, or F8 for short, was kind of a transition point. It's the first movie without the late Paul Walker, it has a new director, F. Gary Gray, taking over for James Wan, and maybe most importantly, it's where the feud between Vin Diesel and Dwayne Johnson really became a thing. They famously aren't in a single shot together in the whole movie. But I think what's more important than the conflict is how it changed the vibe of the series. Over the past decade, Dwayne Johnson has refined a very specific movie star brand. He has basically become his own franchise. When you go see Jumanji or Rampage or Hobbs and Shaw or Jungle Cruise, you know what he's going to bring. He'll be charming and tough and self-aware. There's that wink at the audience that tells you he knows he looks like a cartoon person and that this is all kind of silly, but stick with him because he's gonna show you a good time. In 2011, when he first appeared as Luke Hobbs in Fast 5, this persona had not been refined yet. Look at him in this movie. There's this anger and intensity to his performance. He's not winking at all. He is fully a part of this world.
Stay the fuck out of my way.
And then look at him 3 movies later. He's laughing at his own lines and he has his own extended comedy scenes where he coaches his daughter's soccer team. I'm not saying these scenes aren't funny. They are. But they shift the movies away from the tone that made them work. The Fast and Furious movies, at their best, lean hard into this goofy sincerity that's anchored by Vin Diesel's performance. He's so committed to Dominic Toretto and the story he's telling, and his voice is so impossibly deep, that it lends a gravitas to even the most insane shit that happens. As The Rock got promoted to co-lead of the series, his own approach to winking, self-aware macho action movies seeped in and kinda threw off the balance. When you watch Dwayne Johnson, you can tell he knows this is absurd. But when you watch Vin Diesel, he's treating it like it's goddamn Shakespeare. And then in Hobbs and Shaw, the Dwayne Johnson energy just took over the whole thing. Nothing feels like it matters because there's none of the Vin Diesel sincerity. But the real problem with that movie is that it's a buddy movie with Johnson and Jason Statham. And it doesn't seem to understand how buddy movies work. So look at the great buddy movie pairs. Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy, Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith, Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan, Clint Eastwood and Jeff Bridges. They bounce off each other because they have totally different energies. There's a straight man and a funny guy. In Hobbs and Shaw, they're both the funny guy. The one joke is that they don't like each other and keep trying to beat the other, and it's repeated in every scene for 2 hours. Instead of a no-nonsense guy and a wise ass, you just have 2 wise asses who have different accents. The movie does finally click together a bit in the last act when they go to Samoa and you get Hobbs' family and the sincerity it's been missing finally shows up, but it's too little too late. And when they try to give Hobbs a classic goofy line about how they have what the villain is missing, and that's heart, it rings false, because that's not the vibe that character has had for the rest of the film. And this is why I'm so excited about F9, whose trailer alone is probably the best movie of 2020 so far. You've got Justin Lin back directing, the guy who really made the series what it is, and with The Rock off in his own spin-off worlds, they can refocus on that goofy Vin Diesel sincerity. The main conflict with John Cena as Dom's secret evil brother, that is 100% the kind of shit these movies are about. #family. The action looks amazing, and most importantly, my boy Han is back, fucking yes! Now what was it I said 3 years ago? Bring Han back. If Letty can come back, why not him too? And here we are. Remember, Justin Lin is the guy who created Han way back in his debut film, Better Luck Tomorrow. Han is his dude. And when Lin was gone, that's when we got the awful disrespect showed to Han when they refused to even mention his name in F8 and let the guy who murdered him come to the family barbecue. And that's when the whole Justice for Han movement sprang up, and then you get Justin Lin returning, wearing a Justice for Han shirt on the set, and then the straight up tagline for the movie is "Justice is coming." Justin Lin gets this shit. He knows what works about these movies and what they need, and I hope to God I survive 2020 so I can see it.
Oh, Pat, don't go there.
Now, as you may have heard, I am one of the foremost Michael Bay scholars on the internet. Not because I earned that title, but because it's not a very competitive field. So, How did I feel about 6 Underground, Bay's recent blockbuster action movie for Netflix? This is Bay's first film after stepping away from Transformers. I guess after introducing the world to Cogman and Nitro Zeus in Transformers The Last Knight, aka the world's most confusing film, he realized he'd taken the series as far as he could, and it was time to move on. And he moved on by making that which is so rare in Hollywood these days, a big-budget R-rated blockbuster that's not based on any intellectual property. Of course, the only way something like that gets made nowadays is being funded by Netflix, and so, despite the massive spectacle, it only played on like 5 movie theater screens in the entire country, but because I'm me, and by that I mean an idiot who makes bad decisions, instead of watching it for free at home, I paid $18 at that weird iPic theater in New York's South Street Seaport to see Michael Bay's latest opus on the big screen. In terms of action filmmaking, this is some of Bay's most impressive work. The movie opens with this 20-minute car chase through Florence, Italy that is truly deranged and looks astoundingly dangerous. It all looks incredible, there's massive property damage, and Bay's nihilism and love of destroying human beings is on full display. Seriously, the heroes of the movie injure and possibly kill countless innocent civilians. The gore is more intense than in any previous Bay film. Part of the sequence involves Ryan Reynolds handling a human eyeball with a long optic nerve dangling from it. Blood sprays into faces in beautiful slow motion. When one character fires a grenade launcher, the film slows down to show the grenade hitting a guy in the face and breaking his nose before it explodes, killing him. And the whole sequence kicks off with this beautiful, hypnotic, late-period Tony Scott-esque stylization. Bay feels like he's pushing his style further than ever before. The main problem with the movie is that it can't decide whether it wants to be a gleefully anarchic, ultra-violent joyride, or a serious story about real emotional characters doing important things. And I think part of the problem is Ryan Reynolds. Now, to be clear, I think Reynolds is a good actor. The problem is that for the past 4 years or so, Deadpool has taken over Reynolds' entire persona and carries over into every film he makes. See, I don't know if you've heard, but the thing about Deadpool is he knows he's in a movie. He makes that pretty clear.
Whose balls did I have to fondle to get my very own movie?
And in Reynolds' other movies, even if he doesn't overtly break the fourth wall, he always seems to have one foot outside the reality of the story he's telling. Look at the trailer for his upcoming movie, Free Guy, which, like all movies nowadays, is delayed indefinitely. But the whole premise is that he realizes he's in a video game world where nothing matters, so he can be checked out and do whatever he wants and comment on how silly it all is. I enjoyed Detective Pikachu, but sometimes that movie feels like they wrote a bunch of additional lines after they filmed it so Reynolds could do his self-aware Deadpool thing. I didn't even mention this earlier, but Ryan Reynolds is in Hobbs and Shaw, and he brings the same energy to that, and it feels out of place in the Fast and Furious universe. So, what does this have to do with 6 Underground? Well, I think one element that a good Michael Bay movie needs is a cast that is totally locked into the insanity of the world and believes completely in all of it. Nicolas Cage is exactly the kind of crazy that The Rock requires. Bruce Willis brings his A-game to Armageddon and anchors the whole thing. Will Smith and Martin Lawrence have what feels like a genuine decades-long friendship in the Bad Boys movies. And hey, remember when I was talking about Dwayne Johnson and how he always brings the same slightly winking, self-aware vibe to his movies? Well, he has never been better or more committed than in Pain and Gain, Michael Bay's masterpiece of delusional, violent American idiocy. So, the problem with Reynolds in 6 Underground is that while he seems to be having fun, he feels removed from the world. That opening car chase literally has him calmly rolling down the window and looking around, amused at the chaos and violence around him. The lead actor needs to be our compass, directing us through the movie and setting the tone. Reynolds doesn't feel like an inhabitant of this world, but more like someone visiting. And so you've got a movie that does have a bunch of fun stuff. If you're like me and you love analyzing Michael Bay's craft and the way he stages these astounding sequences of violence and destruction, you'll have a lot to look at. But as a movie, it feels wildly schizophrenic. Anytime the movie slows down and asks us to care about the relationships between the characters or the importance of their mission, it feels wildly out of place. Also, apparently Michael Bay's next movie after Six Underground is called Black 5. I'm going on the record now. He's counting down to something. What will it be? I have no idea, but this is all intentional. And never forget, Michael Bay has 2 films in the Criterion Collection. So Criterion, stop being cowards and put those films back in print.
Well, you can say that again.
And now we turn to a new segment on the show, where we find out what people are thinking out in the world today. This is Let's Get Coconuts with special correspondent Charl. Thanks, Charl. Man, I love that guy. You never know what he's gonna do next. Anyway, 2 years ago, I did a deep dive into the work of J.J. Abrams, or J.J. Abrams, specifically the TV series Felicity, in an attempt to figure out what he's trying to say in the stories he's telling, and what he might do with Star Wars Episode 9. For those not familiar with it, Felicity is the first show Abrams created, as well as the only long-running story he ever saw through to the end, as opposed to jumping ship after a season or 2 like he usually did. Well, Star Wars Episode 9 was released and we all saw it, and I talked about it a lot in recent videos, so I'm going to keep this part brief. Also, when I said no more Star Wars videos, I meant no more videos like specifically about Star Wars. I didn't say I couldn't mention it. So let me play some clips from what I said 2 years ago about what I learned from Felicity, and we'll see how they connect to Episode 9. It's clear from looking at his work that Abrams is interested in stories about people at odds with their parents, in particular their fathers. Okay, yep, so there's the Rey Palpatine thing now. Ben hates his absent, abusive, alcoholic father and ends up reconciling with him in the final season. Literally the same thing happens in this movie. And the other main recurring Abrams theme is choosing one's own family. The final image in Felicity is of her celebrating with the family she made over the past 4 years. Once again, weird that Star Wars ends with Rey all alone. So what does this mean for Star Wars Episode 9? I don't know. Rey returns home to Jakku, but now she knows some Jedi stuff and has some nice new friends in the Resistance. Kylo Ren reconciles with his father, but he can't because his father's dead, and quits the First Order to study pre-med. Fuck. That's not too far off. When I made that video, it made it very clear how much Abrams avoided writing endings and thus ever having to make a real statement with any of his stories. And in the way Felicity ends, with her changing very little other than making some new friends, it made me really worried about Star Wars and if he could really tell a story about meaningful, impactful change. The time has come to put his cards on the table, to lay it all on the line, and actually say something. Not just that friends are good and mysteries are fun, but write an ending that communicates an actual idea. The Rise of Skywalker was a real Emperor has no clothes moment for me, no pun intended. It confirmed suspicions I had had about Abrams that I really hoped weren't true. That for all his skill with casting actors, introducing characters, and beginning stories, as good as he is at dynamic visual storytelling, he has absolutely no new ideas of his own. I hoped that he might rise to the challenge of ending this huge saga he's loved his whole life and really say something meaningful. But instead, all he had to say was, hey, I like Star Wars. Do you like Star Wars too? Here's a bunch of that Star Wars stuff I like. The only real idea he's ever had about choosing one's own family, he handled better 20 years ago in Felicity. J.J. Abrams is great at imitating the things he likes, but I don't think he understands what those things mean or why they work. And here's something I've been thinking about. Two of Abrams' main collaborators, Matt Reeves, who created Felicity with him, and Damon Lindelof, who created Lost with him, have gone on to make much better, more interesting work than anything Abrams has done on his own. Really makes me wonder how much of the good stuff about those shows was due to their influence. Just Something to think about.
That's Pat for you, doing follow-up videos about videos he already did. Here we go.
Okay, I know what you're all thinking right now. Patrick, enough of this blockbuster bullshit. Quit talking about movies people have seen. When are you going to tell us what you thought of Terrence Malick's 3-hour meditative period drama, A Hidden Life? Well, buckle up, baby, because it's Terry time. Last summer, I made this video about what I dubbed Malick's tough twirling trilogy, his 3 recent movies that no one went to see and no one really cared about, myself included. I wondered if this once vital filmmaker had become a shadow of his former self, if he was simply repeating his same tricks but in shallower material. And then, the answer to that question came in A Hidden Life, Malick's return to period dramas. Short answer? I think it's really good. Maybe even great. I stand by what I said in that video, that Malick's operatic, balletic, impressionistic style, with ultra-wide-angle shots capturing bodies moving like dancers against magnificent backdrops as whispered poetic narration plays over top, really requires a story of a suitable scale. In films like Night of Cups or Song to Song, which are mostly about rich people being sad, the execution highlights the thinness of the story and characters and comes off as way more baroque than the material calls for. This is why Malick's best work, where his filmmaking approach feels most suited, is in stories about massive change and transformation, about life and death. And A Hidden Life is exactly that. It's a story about resisting fascism in World War II-era Europe, about an Austrian man who refuses to swear loyalty to the Nazi Party, who is ostracized by his community and imprisoned by the Nazis as his wife cares for their children in his absence. Malick uses the more impressionistic style of his last 3 movies, as the movie feels constructed from fragments of memories and small moments, and combined with the story he's telling, the effect is often really powerful and moving. This movie obviously isn't for everyone. I mean, it only made $4 million at the box office, but if you're interested in Malick and lost track of him over the past decade, now is the time to jump back in. I am truly happy to report that he has not lost a step. So before we move on to our last follow-up mini-essay, or whatever these are called, we're gonna hand this over to special correspondent Matt Torpy for a new segment that is sure to be an audience favorite.
All right, folks, people, the guy, Pat, he wants a segment. This is gonna be called Matt Wines. Little ASMR going. Rugrats. The reason I'm choosing this is not because we're gonna do some sort of only 90s kids remember nostalgia bullshit. We're gonna talk about more broadly the idea of when it is appropriate or ideal for an idea to die. So this is all anecdotal evidence on my part as emblematic of a phenomenon in which greed and money keep something on life support until it is a hollowed out corpse shell of itself. This cartoon was something that was important to me when I was a child, was clearly a product of somebody's passion. And I think that you watch that passion become literally rounded off at the edges and turned into a nondescript blob. And eventually it just died, ignobly, ignominiously. Oh man, we're drinking a Scopa Pinot Grigio. I don't know anything about wine.
If there's one thing you can say about Matt, it's that he's got a nice pair of glasses. Moving on. So a year ago, I made that really long video about music biopics and how generic and lifeless the formula most of them use is. And then Rocket Man, the Elton John biopic, came out. People kept asking me what I thought of it, but the truth is that I was so burnt out on music biopics that even with the good reviews, I could not work up the interest to see it. I said I would wait until next year. Well, it's next year now, and I have a whole lot of free time. So I'm gonna go watch it now. Okay, so I watched Rocket Man. Since last summer, everyone has been telling me, Patrick, Rocket Man isn't like all those other music biopics. This one is different. And now that I've seen it, that's partly true. Rocket Man is in many ways exactly the kind of biopic the video is about. It has a framing device where the subject looks back on his entire life. The story spans decades and much of the movie is made up of long montages. It has the exact same arc as every other biopic where the big third act climax is the subject going to rehab and getting sober. And yes, it even ends with a freeze frame and text telling you what happened to the person in the years after. So it's a music biopic. And even if it doesn't really do anything new with the structure or the story, it does do something that I can't believe more of these movies don't do. It looks at its subject, considers who this person is, and asks, what is the best way to tell that story? And the answer it comes up with is that the best way to tell the story of Elton John's life is as a big theatrical musical. Like a traditional musical, at the big emotional peaks of the story or the periods of change and transformation, the film shifts into these big theatrical musical numbers. These are the best parts of the movie, as it breaks away from reality and weaves together these big catchy songs and surreal imaginative visuals that communicate what this must have felt like way more effectively than yet another montage would. Often, these take on the appearance of a Broadway show, taking place on a stage with backdrops and backup dancers, so this thing is ready-made for the inevitable Broadway version that I assume will be up and running in a few years, assuming this period we're in the middle of ever ends. Another important thing about Rocketman is that it's rated R. Thank fucking God. I promise you, every single one of these rock stars lived a very R-rated life, and it always does it a disservice to see it sanitized to fit a PG-13 rating. One of the many faults of Bohemian Rhapsody is how neutered it felt by avoiding any real adult content. And yeah, it's inevitable that Rocketman has to be compared to Bohemian Rhapsody. They were released less than a year apart. They're both about iconic gay British rock stars who were at their height around similar times, and Dexter Fletcher, director of Rocketman, took over directing Bohemian Rhapsody after that other guy got fired. And in pretty much every way, Rocketman is the superior movie. Sure, it is very much a traditional formulaic biopic, but it makes a handful of exciting choices, and it feels like there are some actual human beings at the center of it, not just thin caricatures. Also, Taron Egerton and Jamie Bell are both excellent. So that's it. That's my final word on all these movies and filmmakers and franchises, so stop asking me about them until, I guess, new ones come out and then this starts all over again. And yes, I know I didn't talk about last year's Robin Hood movie because I really cannot work up the energy to see it. So stay tuned for our new segment, Jake's Politics Corner, coming right after this ad read. So this is obviously a strange time we're living in. I imagine most of you watching this are spending way more time in your homes than ever before. So if you're looking for something to watch that's less depressing than the news, I've got a great option for you. CuriosityStream is home to thousands of great documentaries. It's a streaming platform where you can learn about science and history and relax to the soothing sounds of David Attenborough's voice. And when you sign up for it at the link in the description, you can get a free subscription to Nebula. Nebula is a platform developed by a bunch of YouTube creators, including me. All of my videos are there, ad-free, as well as a whole bunch of amazing exclusives. So if you watch this video and were like, I really want more Tom Hooper talk, well, I've got good news. Lindsay Ellis just did a great video all about Hooper's Les Mis movie, and it's available now exclusively on Nebula. And once all of this ends and we're no longer under quarantine, I'll be able to start production on a short film that will premiere on Nebula this year. So you can get all of this, CuriosityStream plus a free Nebula subscription by signing up at the link in the description. And right now, CuriosityStream is offering a 40% discount on all annual plans. This supports independent creators like me, you get a ton of great stuff to watch, everyone wins.